wind turbines, resilience,
fractal dimensions,
climate change, biophysical modeling,
inequality, how to deal with uncertainty,
biodiversity,
ecosystem services,
low-quality pump sets,
spiritual connections with places.
So this approach of ecosystem services is really about trying to quantify the benefits that human beings derive from nature. In the corporate world, dollar valuation really makes sense. That's a metric that they are used to and that they can compare in their balance sheet. In the NGO sector, it's typically different health and well-being metrics that people are interested in measuring.
Biodiversity provides the food we eat, it filters the air we breathe. And in the future, we don't know which species that provide these things to us actually will survive. So by conserving the most biodiversity that we can, we actually ensure our ability to persist through climate change.
In these farms in Ethiopia, there's all of this local biodiversity that feeds people on a day-to-day basis, but that same diversity is also used by crop breeders all over the world to support the global food supply. So everything that anyone eats anywhere comes from diversity on these small farms.
So one of the biggest challenges that we face when we're trying to think about adapting to climate change is how to deal with uncertainty, because there's a whole lot of things about the future that we just can't ever know.
There are these large uncertainties, but models can still be very useful to inform decisions. For example, if we are still below a given threshold, even with large uncertainties, we know that the decision we want to make is not going to be affected by this uncertainty.
In network theory, there is a lot of evidence that the topology or the form of the structure of a network gives a lot of information about the stability or the resilience and the network could be. All kinds of networks coming from the internet to friends networks to ecological networks, they all display some common properties.
From ecological systems, we know what a resilient system looks like in terms of distribution of scaling within the system. And so if we want to orient our systems of society in a more resilient way, we need to also organize social and economic systems in a way that they scale similar to ecological systems which are known to be resilient.
Robert F. Kennedy once said that GDP, or gross domestic product, measures everything except what makes life worth living. When you have GDP and, let's say, an oil spill or any other natural disaster, GDP goes up because economic activity goes up. The Junior Progress Indicator, or GPI, starts with GDP basically, or personal consumption, and then adjusts it. So adjusts it for inequality, environmental costs, social costs, but it also tries to add the positives, the benefits, things like volunteer work, stay-at-home moms, or housework, which GDP doesn't consider at all.
People relate to ecosystems in many non-material ways, but we're not good at including those relationships in ecosystem management. So these include spirituality, cultural heritage, identity, education, psychological value, the fact that we feel better when we're in natural places. The big part of this is finding ways to characterize them in ways that bring them on to the decision-making table.
So I see social justice as a fundamental part of a sustainable future. I mean, I think that there is no point in imagining a sort of environmentally benign future that has social inequalities.
The question in my mind is that, is it fair to place so much emphasis on poor people managing their natural resources when they are so busy trying to get out of poverty?
Climate justice is an approach that to thinking about climate change that tries to bring justice and equality and rights, inequalities to the centre of those debates. So climate justice would talk about relocalising food production, for example, in response to or as a critique of large-scale corporate-controlled agriculture that actually has very negative implications for many farmers around the world and their food security.
most of the time, I would say, people aren't trying to pollute water. They're doing it because they're trying to grow crops or they're trying to harvest timber. And what we wanted to do was really try to close that feedback loop and think about who is it affecting downstream, and can we transfer that value back to the upstream landowners.
A more sustainable future needs to be an equitable future. Research funding shouldn't be dependent on how profitable a venture is to pharmaceutical funding, but onto the general well-being of individuals who are affected by it.
I feel really optimistic about the future of humanity. I think people are incredibly smart and incredibly resilient.
I think it's fundamentally important that we try and reconnect people with the resources on which they're reliant on their daily lives. We have to make people understand that there is consequences from even the most benign sources of consumption, such as turning the TV on or using the internet.
One of the things that's going to be really important is redefining prosperity and redefining what it means to thrive in the world.
When we, all of us as a society, finally understand how dependent we are on nature, I hope that when that happens, we will finally start this huge cultural change that we need to be able to be more sustainable, basically.